Freaka TV, Freak Up Studio, live. 2023 GSL Season 2.
Hey, I feel amazing.
What's up, everyone? We are here in the GSL Code 8 and Code S, and the round of 8 starts now. We're off to a great start.
I was going to say, what year is it, Tasteless?
I know. It's the round of S. Code 8 is what I was trying to say. Tasteless here with State, obviously here in the round of 8. Very excited to go into this. We've got a lot of Terrans here today with one Zerg. Are we going to have more Terrans advance in what's already been a very heavy Terran year here for GSL? Or are we going to have one Terran and one Zerg move on?
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a tough group for Solar to advance out of, with three of the best Korean Terrans, three of the best Terrans in the world, you know, frankly. And I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him because, you know, it could be kind of a blessing and a curse playing ZVT as your only matchup in a group because, on one hand, it's the only matchup you need to practice coming into this. So, you know, Solar's been grinding ZVTs pretty much since their group was announced, right? But on the other hand, you know, every Terran's also going to see how you play on each map against all the other Terrans, and they can adjust on the fly.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of different openings when you just have one matchup to play in, which might sound counterintuitive, but yeah, in a GSL, each of the players can evaluate you as you're moving through the group and try to make their own micro adjustments to play against you here. It's been a very good year so far for Terran. We're going to see how Terran heavy the Final Four is going to be, but as we go into the round of 8 here, we're rapidly actually approaching the end of the tournament. We're going to finish this week. Then we've got the Final Four and the finals just a week after next, this Thursday, I should say. So
that's pretty much the half point here for Season 2.
Yeah.
Two groups left and then finals day. So
it's crazy,
winding down very quickly. I mean, it's all high speed from here.
It is. It is. TVT, by the way, has been an interesting matchup. A lot of important decisions to be made right as you go into mid-game. A lot of different builds. It really does reward players with a lot of creativity. So I'm looking forward to unpacking the TVTs that we're going to have here, as well as, and we'll see how many TVTs we get, maybe 2, maybe 3, if we're lucky. So if you want to join us here, you can get your tickets online. We do have an audience filling the space up. We're not selling tickets out either, though. So if you want to come watch GSL while it's back in the studio, and by the way, thank God we are back in the studio. So much better to have an audience here. Purchase a ticket. It's about, 8,000 won, so that's about $6 US, give or take.
It's barely over $6, so a very good deal.
Another way to support the GSL is to donate. You can do that through a Freaka TV directly with Star Balloons. You can also go to the Patreon and support there. The more you support, the more perks you get. And this is the nature of GSL right now, and I think it's probably going to be the nature of a lot of esports here with, games like ours not getting the same kind of direct support from publishers. We've gone to the viewers instead and asked for you guys to help out.
Yeah, and the StarCraft community has really come together, not just for GSL, but for a ton of crowdfunded tournaments throughout the scene, both in Asia and around the world. So, heartfelt thanks to you guys. Without you, we wouldn't be in the studio. This wouldn't be possible. And of course, all proceeds from the Patreon go directly to the prize pool, up to $30,000. Everything after that rolls over to the next season of GSL. So you're directly supporting your favorite players too. Already $18,500 raised. And I think at the end of this month, we should crack 30K with what the Patreon is at, which should top out for Season 2. But of course, I mean, don't let that deter you from supporting and subscribing to the Patreon. The perks are phenomenal. I mean, getting the replays in particular is such a clutch thing. And a season like this one, too, the games have been so spectacular from Group A all the way through Group T and the round of 16. And now coming into the round of 8, it's only going to get better.
Yeah, and having those replays, being able to open them up and actually see, in a way that you can't really see with the VOD, right? Exactly when each player saw what and how they made their decisions. And you can use that to just entertain yourself. You can use that to build it into your own play. There's a lot that can be done there. So we're going to be hopping into Group A here for the round of 8 in just a second. But first, a quick overview.
Yeah, so the round of 8, the group drawn, so nobody is playing their opponents from the round of 16. So Group A has one player from Group A, B, C, and D. Group B has one player from Group A, B, and C, and D from the round of 16. 2 first-place finishers, 2 second-place finishers. That's how the groups were drawn. And, the winners of these groups are going to advance into the top 4. They're basically booking their ticket to Finals Day here, right now, this Tuesday, this Thursday. All going to be decided then.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We're already here now. The round of 16 was a blast, but the round of 8, man, it's hard to even know who to root for here. I guess I know to kind of root against Terrans just because we have more of them, if that makes sense. Group B, by the way, I'm especially excited about. Hero, the only Protoss in the round of 8, but if there were a Protoss who could make it, I would have to imagine it's him, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough position, especially for Korean Protoss right now, because so many top Protosses have retired, and also the map pool maybe not the best for them right now, as we've seen from Season 1 and Season 2. But no, Hero, he didn't quite have the performance we expected from him last season. This season, he's been stepping it up a little bit, although he did look shaky in his PvPs against Nightmare. We'll see how he looks Thursday in Group B, but today, Tasteless, we got to get through 3 Terrans and 1 Zerg, and I really think Solar is going to be up against the ropes because ByuN, Maru, and GuMiho, easily 3 of the top Terrans in the world.
ByuN especially has looked very good. Obviously, Maru is always someone we have to say might just take the whole GSL. He's certainly taken more than anybody else. GuMiho in great shape, always bringing a very different and novel style to the game, very hard to prep against. We don't know if he's going to, do some crazy mech stuff or have some other kind of alternative builds to come in with that. But first, we're going to start this off with ByuN versus Solar.
Yeah, ByuN versus Solar should be a very good match, I think. ByuN, with his aggressive style, should be one of the most explosive TBZs that we get here in the round of 8. And before we go specifically into this match, I want to ask you, who do you think is going to emerge victorious from this group? We've got ByuN, Solar, Maru, and GuMiho.
Well, Maru's a must, right? And then, with the other 3, I couldn't tell you. I think it's really neck and neck. I think anybody who's really confident they know who gets out second is crazy. I think Solar might be in more trouble than we normally expect for this group. It does seem like right now the Zergs are really getting their feet put to the fire. It doesn't seem like Zerg has, at least right now with the player base and the maps we're on, the longevity that they need in some of these late game situations to actually basically outlast the Terran and get those closing moves off, which is something that seemed like Zergs were very reliant on in years past. The other players, GuMiho, I always know he's in good shape, but it's very hard to ever call, right? It kind of depends on what he's going to do and how his opponents are going to play. He's always maintained that unique style. And then ByuN, I think he's brought one of the strongest iterations of himself we've ever seen. I mean, he's a Terran that closes it out in mid-game. Those are the scariest kind, right? The ones that just do what they need to do, get the push on, and end it. Terrifying. Anyways, we're going to go into this game now. ByuN versus Solar. A fight to go on to the winner's match here in Group A. The round of 8 for GSL Season 2. Code S. GSL Code S Season 2, I guess. We're kind of out of order today.
Discombobulated.
That's what's going on, man.
The first one of the round of 8.
Yeah. Like, GS Code. GS Code SL. Oh, what else?
Shopify Rebellion. ByuN.
Getting ahead of myself.
We'll get into the swing of things quickly, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, this should be a very good match. I agree with you that Maru probably the favorite to get out of this group, and then it's tough to choose number 2.
Solar.
Personally, I think GuMiho, given his recent form, is probably my favorite to advance alongside Maru, but...
And talk about a shift in a power here in the GSL. I mean, it's no secret that we've had a lot of Zergs just kind of crush. A lot of Zergs in Maru, frankly. And part of that's because Maru in Korea knows how to beat the Zergs. But, the reign of Dark, the reign of Rogue, that seems to, especially here in 2023, be silenced. Before, we basically always had a season where one of those guys won.
Yeah, now with Rogue not competing and Dark maybe not living up to the expectations we had for him in Season 1. Welcome down to the studios,
Welcome, guys. Enjoy
like
the
that
games.
shirt. Always good to have an audience down here. It does feel like Zerg is not in as strong a position as they used to be here. And a lot of that comes down to TBZ, and I think also the map pool just seems like it's quite good for Terran, and I'm thinking back to GSLs that we casted in previous years, and oftentimes it was a little bit more difficult, I thought, for Terrans to reach those critical points of getting, 8 or 10 Vespene geysers up where they can really hunker down for the late game, and also it felt like there weren't maybe as many opportunities for them to get too much damage done in the early game, besides that one GSL where we casted like 1 million CC first and a 2 base all-ins. That must have happened like 4 or 5 times in a couple of days.
Oh, that became the norm for a little bit.
Yeah, but with that, with the exception of that, I feel like there hasn't really been too much of a shakeup in TVZ up until we got this map pull, and now it seems like Terrans, ByuN is one of those players that's very explosive. We can easily see him end games in the mid game much more successfully than any other Terran in Korea right now. And also you have players like Maru and GuMiho, who especially on this map pool are so good at when they need to hunkering down and playing the late game and just setting up for an unbeatable, I don't want to say composition, but a defense that's so cost efficient where they get to a split map and then it's difficult for Zerg to really make anything happen.
I was wondering, I guess it's not going to happen, but I'm just going to say this anyways. I was thinking, you know, if ByuN plays the style that he's known for, if any player was going to try to punish it, I was guessing it would be Solar. He's very good at setting up to get the upper hand, actually, I think a lot earlier than most other Zergs. But we don't see it this time around. And, you know, it doesn't mean that he has to do that, but I thought maybe if there was going to be a chance of it, it would be here in this series. So we'll see if he can do anything. Right now, ByuN is doing the build that basically he's made his name on here in this season. It's 2 Raxes at the entrance with Reaper pressure that's just slightly more enhanced than if you had 1. And this forces the Zerg to react and respect the threats of Reapers and not, you know, be as free as they normally are. And, you know, it seems to have served ByuN pretty well. I will say, the last couple times we watched ByuN play, it didn't seem like there was a snowballing amount of damage, which it seemed like there was in some of the other games we had of him playing here.
Yeah, and an interesting take on his opening this time here on Babylon as he went for a 2-on-1 with a really fast third command center. So ByuN really gearing up to play a high-tempo mid-game here on 3 command centers. As Stimpack now is started, these Reapers did scout that hatchery. Solar earlier in the game made a really clever play of sneaking out a drone right in the blind spot of those Reapers and hiding it behind the mineral lines there at that third base. So when the Reapers were checking for your hatchery and trying to intercept the drone that would go and build it, they actually missed it. So Solar able to get the hatchery a little bit earlier than he would have otherwise, and he's going to be happy to have a little bit of a better saturation, faster creep spread. Should help him a lot tempo-wise.
Yeah, already a pretty good setup here. We've got the stim starting up now. And notice that, you know, he didn't commit to that many Reapers. I mean, that is one of the features of the build is you're, with the position of the barracks here, you're able to kind of toggle how many Reapers you want at any point in time. So 3 is like literally the bare minimum you would get out of the build as far as pressure before you go right back in Marines. In other games that we casted, sometimes the Reapers kept being made.
Yeah.
And that means that you can really create a lot more threats, but it also means that you're not making Marines. You can't both be making Marines and Reapers out of the barracks at the same time. So interesting to see that ByuN very quickly dials back into more of a core unit set that's going to bolster his push when that time comes.
And I like this play by ByuN too, just making 1 Banshee, not getting cloaked, moving across the map, almost using it like an Oracle here to try and slow down creep spread or, you know, prevent the Zerglings from killing these creep tumors. And this is going to be, of course, a good harassment tool here for ByuN and a good map control tool, but also it gets some indirect damage done on Solar immediately as Solar has to throw down 2 Spore Crawlers, 1 in the main, 1 in the third base, just in case ByuN is, you know, perhaps going for 2 or 3 Banshees with Cloak. And that's not what he's doing. Behind it, he's just pumping out medevacs now. He's getting his siege tank production underway, double engineering bay also underway, and he's finally moving across the map. So I'm liking this setup here. The game plan for ByuN seems very solid, especially now that he has this group of Marines with stim, and those Reapers are still alive. There's an opportunity to get some damage done here.
So he's going to tear down these rocks. The Bane should be finishing before the Marines can really generate too much of a threat here. In fact, they're going to finish just on time. And ByuN, I mean, so far so good with the control here. These are slower Banes.
Really nice grenade hit too. Actually able to pick off Queen as well as focusing down the high energy one, so no transfuse is able to pop. Picks off a good number of Banelings and then picks up all but 2 of those Marines.
Yeah, only losing 2. I mean, the amount of damage that was done there, it's hard to quantify. I'll say that. I mean, Queens, so many Lings and Banes were picked off. And the fact that he basically lost, like, what, 100 minerals worth of stuff?
Yeah, 4 Marines and 3 Reapers. I mean,
yeah.
Those medevacs got away. They only had 2 more slots.
I forgot about the Reaper set, excuse me.
Well, I mean, that's the best way to trade them out, though,
sure,
right there. Is,
they don't have value later on.
Of course. Very cost-efficient trades here for ByuN. And keep in mind, behind this, he went for a really fast third command center. So not only is he keeping the pressure on Solar, but he's keeping it off his side of the map. And he's macroing very well back at home. He's powering with 3 more barracks, 1-1 upgrades are going to be completing very soon for him. His armory already close to complete, and just continuing to ramp up the pressure now as these siege tanks are coming out. Baneling's speed only about 3/4 of the way done, so there might be a window here, especially with how active ByuN has been on the map. You know, the creep spread isn't what it could have been.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, with the tanks, I'm actually worried this is going to do a lot more damage than any normal TVZ. The tank spread is really nice. He's got a lot of the Marines branched off to kind of cover the back. The Banes are going to come forward again. Bane speed is about 5 seconds out, which is a long amount of time in a TVZ push.
Yeah, this hatchery is almost definitely going to go down too. You see Solar actually splitting off some of these forces to maybe go for a surround here, but ByuN with a really nice split. Banelings and Lings coming in on the right side will connect with those Marines and siege tanks, but not very cost efficiently, as all of the Lings get cleaned up, and now the Queens also very low on hit points here as the siege tank shelling continues. And you know, Solar at the end of the day, he might be able to secure this 4th base. I thought for sure it was going to go down, but it was a very expensive defense, and now Tasteless, the reinforcements coming in.
And it's about 1/4 HP over here. On that hatchery. I mean, it is about to be popped. Banes are actually morphing on site, which is never a good thing. Other Banes are coming forward. A bit of a mismanage there, control-wise. ByuN looking to, I thought, perhaps impulsively go up into the main. Bit of a misclick, can't get all the infantry unloaded. And yeah, he does manage to target down that one Baneling. He may, in fact, get this hatchery regardless. Another tank comes up here with the rest of the push. I'm like, did you know the tanks can attack not in siege mode? Now we do.
It's a very ambitious tank right there. And the damage is continuing to pile up right now. Behind all of this, ByuN is just continuing to macro at home. A 4th command center already underway. Drones are falling here in the main base. And although Hydralisks are now on the field here for Solar, you got to think that the damage might be a little bit too much. Even with that 4th hatchery standing right now, it is 61 drones to 70 SCVs. The production for ByuN absolutely out of control. And Solar's economy, it's really suffering right now. He has to go and cycle through with 6 more drones as he takes the 5th base down to the bottom left. And those are units that aren't being trained. That's minerals that isn't being spent on Lings, on Hydras, on Queens. Meanwhile, ByuN is just continuing to macro up a massive force, and you got to think that the follow-up push is going to be very deadly.
Now, he didn't kill the hatch. He did get a lot of drones in this. He's ahead in supply, but you want to see those hatcheries fall. It seems like he's mixing the beat up a little bit and going to come down here to the bottom where the creep had its largest reach on the map. 2-2's about to finish. Again, I think ByuN, you know, he's inches away from closing this out. He's done so much damage. He did seem to trip up quite a bit when he had that push that I thought was going to actually kill the hatch. It seems like he overextended and then had a difficult time getting his medevacs to unload due to a misclick, but this is a tough game. Solar is hanging on for dear life.
Yeah, Solar is up against the ropes right now with ByuN powering on 2 factories. He just threw down 3 more barracks as well, so the production is out of this world. These +2 Marines just absolutely shredding that hatchery in the bottom left. It will go down as the siege to push continues over by the triangle third, and it's battered and bruised from all these earlier attacks, and Solar's committed so many resources to defending it up until this point. And now with the 5th base going down to the bottom left, it's an even more dire position as ByuN ballooning at 175 supply to the 133 here of Solar. You got to think this is almost the end of the road here for our Zerg.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting pulled apart here piece by piece. I think we probably will see him tap out. You know, it's funny, the Zerg has these moments it looks like he might overcome him, but the reality is the supply is so big here for ByuN. And you know what? ByuN won that kind of how we talked about before the game started. He seems to be the scariest type of Terran, which is the one that kills you as you're kind of in the mid game. I guess that was a little bit longer than that, but you get what I'm saying. He crushes you with the push. You never get into that late game where the Zerg wants to go.
Yeah, his mid game is absolutely the scariest, I think, in TBZ right now here in the round of 8. I mean, maybe Cure can hold a candle to him, but it's tough with how well ByuN has been playing, specifically with his 2-rack style on the low ground that he has so many different variants of. I mean, even in game number 1, seeing this really fast 3rd command center, it was 2 barracks, factory, command center, then starport. Solar didn't have quite good read on it, and ByuN was able to just power up with so much macro. The push was nigh unstoppable, as the attrition just really wore Solar down.
Yeah, I mean, he got whittled down pretty quickly. Again, I like the 3 Reapers into immediate Marines. You're not wasting your time at all. Is ByuN going to do that double racks build? Is Solar going to have any kind of counter to it? And if not, I mean, what is the fate of Zerg here in this GSL? Is, you know, Solar not winning here now in this series, he's that much closer to being knocked out of the GSL. We don't know if we're even going to get a Zerg here in the round of 4. We don't know yet.
Yeah, only 2 Zergs alive right now. Solar the only hope for Zerg here in Group A. Dark the only hope for Zerg in Group B. Both of those very difficult groups to emerge victorious from. Solar is going through the gauntlet right now. 3 of the best Terran players in the world. Let's see if we can fight back now against ByuN.
GSL Season 2. Shopify Rebellion, ByuN. Onside Gaming, Solar.
Okay, so right now it does look like it's the same build from ByuN. Which, by the way, he kind of thought this was going to be more of a meta build. It seems like it's mostly just been his.
Yeah, we have seen some Terrans mixing this in a little bit so far here in Season 2, which we didn't see in Season 1. But I got to say, if ByuN just keeps doing this build and keeps killing Zergs with it, I think the meta shift is going to continue to go in this direction. And that's going to be a scary proposition for a lot of Zergs, not just in Korea, but around the world and also on the ladder throughout different levels of play. Is if this is a viable alternative, which ByuN has pretty much solidified that it is, if you can play at his skill level, then suddenly the playbook for Terran gets a little bit wider. And anytime you can add some more depth to, more strategic depth, I should say, to any race, it's a scary situation in the meta.
It is. You know, it's funny because this build isn't that crazy.
No, it's not. It
It's
makes
not
a lot
even
of
like
sense.
it's really that new. Like, there's no doubt in the first week of the game being released 12 years ago, people were doing probably openings that looked like this. But now here we are. It's 2023. We're about halfway through the year here, and it's like ByuN is saying in interviews. He's interviewed on stage where everybody could see it. He goes, yeah, this is my build that I'm running. I think it's good. He keeps doing it. Everybody knows he's going to do it. Obviously, there's different variations inside the build. You know, so it's not completely predictable, but it's pretty fascinating to see that he's stuck with it. And so far, so good.
Yeah, and up until 210 or so, the build was pretty much identical all the way through with those 3 Reapers going into a command center. And then behind that, we've seen a lot of different variants. We've seen, I think it was a 3 or a 4 racks variant from ByuN and GSL Codas Season 1, where he was able to get a ton of damage done with a Marine push, which the Zerg player did not scout in that game. And then here in game number 1 of this series, going for a really fast 3rd command center with a 2-on-1, was able to not only accomplish a lot of aggression, his Solar went for the same play as he did in the previous game where he sneaks out the drone. This time he's gonna have to go for the triangle 3rd. And that's a little bit scarier here for Zerg, actually. So the fact that ByuN caught that one and Solar really wants this 3rd hatchery is, oh, is he gonna get this? I think with the grenade he's gonna get it. It's so much value from these 3 Reapers, but it is a scary moment for Zerg to take this triangle 3rd here because of the layout on Grezman. This is the most direct path for Terran into your base, and you got to know that the siege tank push or the bio push, whatever comes, is going to come with this as the focal point. And on top of that, the Reaper is able to get a not insignificant amount of damage on that hatchery. I mean, everything adds up, right? How many hatcheries have we seen over the course of GSL this year, both in Season 1 and Season 2, that escape with a quarter or an eighth of hit points remaining? So these Reapers getting at least 10 or 15 seconds to shell away that. That chip damage, it does add up. And behind this, ByuN once again going into the 3rd command center.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, State. The fact that this base, it's so uncomfortable. So, I mean, really, this big kind of butterfly effect moment where the one drone getting killed forces the base down here, which may set ByuN up for a pretty easy mid-game. We'll see. Oh
this
my
control
God.
is so good.
It's crazy. It's insane. He can get the last ling, right? No.
I mean, that's value, though. A lesser
many
Terran
lings?
player. That's got to be like 7 or 8 lings in total, right?
And again, I mean, remember, everybody.
9!
9.
9 lings and a drone.
I thought you became German for a second. 9! This is, it's huge. And again, the Reapers, they don't have any real value later on. So to just spend them in that sense is crazy.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a different build here from ByuN that we saw in game number 1. If I'm not mistaken, I wasn't paying the closest attention in the previous match, but I think last game it was 2 barracks, factory, command center, then starport, whereas in this case, it's command center and then factory after the 2 racks opening with really fast double engineering base. So a little bit more macro-oriented here for ByuN. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's moving out across the map with these Marines. Not only did he whittle down the Ling count of his opponent by 9 with that phenomenal Reaper control, but also he's leaning into something that's going to take a little bit more time to really pick up steam. So sharking around the map with this small group of Marines like this and not committing to attack, it forces a response from the Zerg that slows them down.
Yeah, the Lings are basically being made too soon. It's a good way to play. You know, there's not a whole lot Zergs can do about it. It's an old idea. Going all the way back to like the first year of StarCraft 1 is like, oh, well, you can kind of make them make stuff before they can get more workers out. But it's a really appropriate move here. I mean, it's a small little tactic that ByuN can employ after already getting ahead by a couple steps from killing the drone, forcing the third a certain spot, and then killing those Lings with the Reapers. So this is really exciting.
Yeah, and with ByuN playing such a macro-focused strategy right now with this extra fast third command center behind this build, anything you can do to delay the growth of the drone count on Zerg's side, and also their evolution chambers or their bailing nest and all of their tech, really, it just pays in dividends later on in the game because you're going to be the one taking that tempo advantage now as 3 more barracks coming in. Siege tank production has begun. Double medevac production also begun. So this army here for ByuN is going to start getting a lot more developed, and you got to think, oh, ByuN actually opting to go for way more Marines. He's just building an add-on right now with that starport, making the reactor. You don't see that very often. Usually Terran players, they want to prioritize the medevacs here, but ByuN just so focused on the ground army. It's a cool little quirk.
It's is he going to actually go into the main here, or is he just going to drop down here? I was wondering if he was going to do this. This is a very different way to move out here with the initial group, but I kind of like it. I don't know if it's going to get much done, but it is a very cool approach.
Anything you can do to trade these Marines.
Now he's going to come down from this angle. He's got to be careful. He's just going to lose the medevac.
That's very low
man.
HP. He's lucky the creep spread isn't any further down here. Or
my God.
Solar might actually get that. I'm surprised none of those shots popped. I guess barely out of the range. ByuN knows better than we do.
Yeah. Well, it's always hard to tell, right, from that angle when they're at the very bottom of the map. Like how close are they actually? But the fact that ByuN keeps all that alive is huge.
Yeah, and now ByuN can actually start to get more damage done. Those 2 medevacs, although they didn't get any direct damage inflicted on the Zerg, they still did force out more units, a little bit faster perhaps than Solar would have liked, and I'm surprised Solar actually didn't pounce on this position with only 1 siege tank leading the charge right there, as it might have been a vulnerability, but suppose Solar does want to wait for bailing speed to actually connect. And keep in mind, ByuN, with that really fast double engineering bait, he already has 1-1 upgrades. 1-1 for Solar, only about halfway completed here. The armory now is completing for ByuN, so 2-2 will be begun momentarily here for our Terran player. And should he start to dampen the creep spread a little bit here in the middle of the map, you got to think that he's going to start to entrench himself towards that triangle third and get something done.
I do think that Solar's in much better shape than the other games. I think he's done a good job. We have a counterattack. Is this a counterattack? I guess, actually, ByuN's pretty ready to deal with this. He's just keeping his small set of infantry down here. I think he's trying to see if he can bait out a counter, because then you just smash that, then you fully push.
I think he's very suspicious of it right now. You're right about that. And he even spots it here with a small group of Marines. And creep spread getting slowed down a little bit here. It's going to make it harder for Solar to get a nice surround on this position. And although, yeah, Solar hasn't really taken any direct damage to this point, except for the 3 Reapers picking up some Lings and a drone in the early game. Keep in mind that ByuN is playing a much more macro-focused style this time around, and Tasteless, Solar's coming in. He's going to break down this position.
Well, I think ByuN kind of bided his time out here, and I think Solar had a really good read. He basically identified, okay, you still only have half your stuff here. Now, this is a good catch. Honestly, this is a pretty ambitious base to take from square one because it's so out of the way. And so, you know, in that instance, ByuN actually takes it. He's in a pretty good spot now, and he's going to fly away. ByuN, by the way, still with a pretty decent supply. I guess the question is going to be really about the next hatchery that's pushed, how ByuN could set up to try to hit that, and of course how Solar could try to dismantle that with what he's got and what angles he can come in at.
Yeah, Lurker Den and Hive Tech now underway here for Solar as he's starting to revitalize the creep spread here in the center of the map. ByuN taking a 4th base back in his quadrant and powering up with yet another factory. I'm sure more Marines, or more barracks, excuse me, will follow that. And continuing with the drops, and the Spore Crawler and the Queen able to tag team and take down one of these medevacs is a nice catch for Solar as he continues to kind of parry all of these attacks coming from ByuN. And now he's maxed. I think he's going to be looking for a fight.
Yeah, well, this is going to be the moment you want to start to dump that supply, right? So you can go right back to remaking stuff. Can you trade it out as well efficiently as you come in there?
Wow, that was
actually pretty good. Pretty good there for Solar.
Yeah, that was a pretty even fight. I was impressed. I thought that was going to go a little bit better for Solar, but ByuN with a really nice spread on his Marines and also very good focus fire with the siege tanks on those clumped banelings was able to trade out a little bit more cost effective than, you know, your Kirkland brand Terran.
So many creeps in there earlier. He was almost able to not kill them all off in the entire scan that was there. I was watching that, like, is he going to actually get this? This is an important moment here because Zerg's not where they need to be. They're almost there, having this much of the map, but ByuN is tactically setting up some pretty cool positions. They're going to be a bit of a headache. He's dropping the main. He's pushing down here. He had a smaller drop up in the north. He's branching off really nicely here, and it does almost seem like at times, ByuN is beginning to win on both or at least one front.
Yeah, Solar's having a hard time splitting up his army in the right configuration to deal with all these small little drops, and now our Viper is on the field. The Adrenal Gland's also coming through as Solar actually going to commit, is able to catch one tank there on the left side, so that's a good win for him, but the drop's just continuing on in the main base. Solar will win the fight out front of his door, but 9 more drones going down, some Hydras trading out here with Lings, or Marines, excuse me, is... It does feel like Solar's got a little bit of momentum back after that last engagement, but still, ByuN on a very nice supply.
Yeah, he's on a real tear here. ByuN does not have a 4th base, by the way. You can really appreciate the problems with... Oh, I'm sorry, he does have a 4th base. Actually, just the bottom below 3rd. I was like, that's crazy, he's doing that on 3 bases. You can really appreciate, though, that 3rd base and the main, the fact that you can, like, hit that, pick up, drop, go in the main, force them to go all the way back around, and then come back down and drop again. It's really hard to deal with. But that being said, Solar's kind of kept his core bases set up here. He's not into that point where he has enough of an income that he's going to go into a very comfortable spot here in the late game. In that sense, the game is still fairly close. But yeah, ByuN still able to do some work.
Yeah, Solar really wants to establish another hatchery right now, and especially this base right here. This is the reason why Solar was not gunning to take this one before the top right expansion got sniped, is because it's so easy for Terran with Marines, with siege tanks to actually deny the mining from that low ground. So Solar, his economy, although he is sitting 88 drones, not quite what it could be as Vipers abduct that medevac, bring it into range of the Hydralisks, and it drops just continuing on here for ByuN. It feels like this has been his MO, is just to power through with a ton of Marines, ton of medevacs come in, even taking engagements here against these lurkers.
Yeah, you don't see that very often with just Marines, but you know, this base that we just had a shot of just north of this camera shot, it's like a hard base to ever hold, right? It's why we saw Solar expand into the very top right, is that other base kind of sticks out. It's just not a desirable spot to mine from long term. And we're seeing why now. Another big attack comes through. And, you know, there's just every time we pan out and we keep following the fight, there's just always a couple more siege tanks in the back to shell that and make the Zerg think twice about pushing in.
Yeah, and this is something that ByuN has done so well this game, is completely keep the creep spread under control. I mean, look at the 3rd base right now for Solar and also that very precarious 5th base. There's no creep spread extending beyond that at all, because ByuN, his aggression has just been so on point, and because of that, he's able to stagger his siege tanks in this fine line off of creep as more Marines taking down lurkers despite the healing coming in from Queens. Wow, this is too much damage.
It's actually kind of crazy, man.
I mean, ByuN is just able to take these very cost-efficient trades despite only being on 4 bases because the creep spread is basically non-existent.
So much of this game actually going back to those Reapers that killed the drone.
Yeah.
Forcing that base at a different spot. I mean, it's wild. We've had another Lurker go down. The Lurker count's never been able to get high enough to where there's just no way to have direct entry. It's never really been siege weapons versus siege weapons. It's been the Zerg trying to get their siege weapons up in small numbers and then getting toppled and the position getting broken.
And there's no Vipers on the field yet either. Both of them got sniped by ByuN, so 2 Vipers now in production is going to make it very hard for him to actually break this position as ByuN again with these pure Marine compositions, just taking out Lurkers time after time after time. And Solar now is down to 3 hatcheries, Tasteless. He's going for a counterattack, trying to get some tempo back on the map, but it feels like ByuN is just out of control right now.
I mean, the Banes are, this is kind of the first moment we've actually seen Solar on this side of the map. Come to think of it, some great connections, some big kills on those workers now, 42 to 73. So a lot more drones, but is it too late? You know, it seems like this is something that should have happened 5 minutes ago, and then maybe it would have been ByuN limping through this game instead. And, you know, it could be one of the death rattles here from Solar for the time being. It's a position where we still have ByuN kind of pushing through with what little that he has and doing quite a lot with that. I mean, this is a lot more Lurkers going down. I feel like I never cast this many Marines killing Lurkers like this. It's insane.
Yeah, it's a very awkward interaction that just keeps happening time and time again, but ByuN is so good at it. Is now the Vipers are back on the field, Solar should be able to dislodge ByuN from this forward position, but you know, the supplies really don't tell the full story right now because 40 of that extra supply for Solar right now, it's tied up in drones that are basically not mining because he's on 3 bases. The main base is effectively mined out. The natural expansion is getting there too, probably only 4 patches left at that expansion. So Solar's economy really not in a good spot. Almost keeping pace here with ByuN, and the army supplies are dead even, so really anybody's game, despite what the supplies might be telling you, is ByuN once again pushing into this position.
But if ByuN loses this army, I think he might end up losing the game. He doesn't have the ability to remake as quickly, but right now these fights are looking extremely good for ByuN. ByuN staying out of range of those Lurkers, continuing to inch forward here with these tanks. I don't think that ByuN wants to pick up and try to dump into the main just yet. I think he wants to actually full-on take a fight. The Lurkers have to make a call here. Does he try to dive on top of this, or does he try to keep inching back?
Yeah, I feel like Solar right now is just playing for time a little bit as he finally has that top right expansion taken.
The Baneling's nest went down.
Oh, good catch, Tasteless.
So, I mean, he has 6 Banes now, and that's it. And Banes are normally, when you have this much of a clustered army that's especially holding its ground, like with these tanks, you kind of want a lot of Banes here to try to you know, obliterate the Marines, and then you overwhelm the tanks. That can't happen.
This
and
Viper.
So we may see like the oh my god. We may actually just see Terran kind of win with a very classical Terran push.
Yeah, there's almost no Lurkers here in the natural expansion. There's just one that keeps getting transfused. That must have been 4 or 5 transfused that pop in that one Lurker. Just anchoring the defense there, and Solar finally decides he's going to pounce on this. The blinding clouds are huge. All the siege tanks falling. I think Solar might have done it, Tasteless.
I think so. The blinding clouds were huge. GG, what a game. Oh my god, that was sick.
That was a crazy TBZ. ByuN went from resetting Solar down to 3 hatcheries for an extended period of time. And later in the game, where 2 of those hatcheries had basically no minerals. And Solar was just able to keep his cool, you know, pivot into a Lurker count despite Lurkers not working for him earlier in the game. He was able to find exactly the setup that he needed and work together with Hydralisk, with Queen's Transfuse, with Viper Abductions and Blinding Clouds to hold on long enough to actually weather the storm that was ByuN. It all comes back down to that counterattack that he accomplished with those Adrenal Lings, able to get so much economic damage done. This has been a great series.
This has been so good. Again, props to Solar. I mean, he just waited. He was very patient to get those Vipers out. The tanks are bunched up just enough that, that ByuN was not able to kind of recuperate after that attack. I don't know who's going to take this man. Let's see if ByuN, by the way, is going to open up with the double racks Reaper tech here into expand. Lately 3 Reapers. And how is Solar going to respond? You could see that ByuN did find that hidden drone. That was part of the strat there for Solar to try to get a third up, regardless of the pressure of the Reapers. What does he do now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be something a little bit more close to what we saw in game number 1. It's going to be more aggression coming out of ByuN. I don't think we'll see a 2 barracks and a 3rd command center build quite as quickly as we did here in game number 2. I think ByuN, as a player here in this series, he needs that tempo.
Yeah. Well, our countdown has now started. This is going to be it between these two, at least for now. ByuN versus Solar. Game 3, as it's tied up 1-1 to see who goes on to the winner's match of Group A in the round of 8. Let's go.
GSL Season 2. Shopify Rebellion. ByuN. Onside Gaming. Solar.
$15 hatch.
Yeah. And a depot in the main.
Yeah, both players mixing it up a little bit. Solar going for that hatch before Overlord build with double extractor trick. ByuN deviating for, I think this might be the first TVZ I've seen him deviate from his tried and true 2x on the low ground opening in a long time.
Well, it's a bit of a throwback, right?
Yeah.
We've casted this build many times before. It's going to be command center first. And this is going up against hatchery first. So there's no way Zerg can punish this. So this is going to be quite interesting. Now, this build, I can't remember which season it was, but there was like a whole season where it's like all the Terrans were doing this. And it was so strong, and there were so many variations to the Command Center first build, and it seems to have picked up a year after it was the big build in ASL and StarCraft 1.
Which is funny.
And it was funny because me and our toasters, we casted that, we'd be like, I don't know why people don't do this in StarCraft 2. It seems like it works in StarCraft 1, and then it just started happening. And so, to the uninitiated, you look at this and you go, well, isn't that not safe to get a command center first? I mean, how is that possible? Well, it's because everybody else plays in such a way right now that, you know, nobody's hard countering it. But certainly, yeah, you could just, you know, immediately rush with Lings and have a pretty big punish. But in games like this, and even with builds like Solar's, you can see that you basically go unpunished. And what this does is it lets the mid-game push become a lot stronger, or the third command center come out a lot faster. And so it's a very, it's kind of like a Terran build on steroids, if that makes any sense. And we already know that we're in a meta game right now where it seems like Zergs are much more susceptible to pushes than before.
It does feel that way.
And so you gotta wonder how Solar's gonna brace for impact when this push comes.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what flavor of CC first ByuN is going to go for here with this opening, as this is not something he's really mixed into his repertoire much over the course of GSL this year. And it's going to be a really fast tech lab coming up on this this factory, excuse me. So, It is curious to see. It feels a little odd watching a ByuN game where he's not just building up a massive Marines early on and trying to get something done with, you know, a couple of medevacs out on the field very early. That's actually a Cyclone. Excuse me. A Cyclone coming out. I'm so surprised I almost choked on my words. It's a Cyclone, what?
His first death by casting. Yeah, a Cyclone comes out, which, you know, honestly, if you covered up the IDs, you're like, who is this Tasis? I'm like, it's GuMiho. But no, man, it's ByuN going for that. Again, you know, there's so many ways to play that CC first, but the Cyclone's kind of a cool idea. It looks like it's going to be parlayed with a pretty standard tech from here on out.
Just so many add-on switches right now coming out of ByuN. Liberator as well. This is cool. I think we casted a game like this earlier this season with a Cyclone and 4 Marines, and I can't remember who did it. It might have been Maru who did this as the opening in one of his matches, but I can't say for sure. And I remember thinking it was a very cute little drop. with the Cyclone of those 4 Marines, because there's a lot of targets you can find, like Queens or perhaps this Overlord, although the medevac did overextend a little bit there, so not able to get too much on. There are always these little fun unit interactions that happen with Cyclones this early, especially against a race that's as swarmy as Zerg.
Yeah. We've seen a little bit of this before, too, where it's like kind of this squadron of Marines with a Cyclone, and you try to play a bit of a control game where if the Zerg does overextend, they get punished pretty heavily. Now, back at home, I don't think we had a third command center startup over here. He did see, now that's actually a pretty big catch, because you're looking to see, are there going to be more barracks or not? Well, he tried to hide them, yeah, in the bottom at the natural. So the idea is, let's say an Overseer or an Overlord came into the main and checked, you might think, oh, maybe he's got a third command center. But it's more than obvious now that ByuN is very committed to a 2-base push.
Yeah, this is very reminiscent of the CC first and a 2-base all-in play that we casted. I think it was GSL Season 2 last year, if memory serves. It's just a little bit of a different road to get there with a medevac with 4 Marines and a Cyclone, but the end result's going to be the same. It's going to be ByuN powering with 5 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport on 2 bases, and even just going for only +1 infantry weapons. He's not going to bother getting armor. He really just wants to get the damage done right now. He wants to spend all of those resources onto getting as many units onto the field as possible, and we'll see what he's able to get done. This expansion here on Royal Blood should ByuN be able to control the creep spread a little bit better than he has right now, and take out these middle tumors that Solar has established. I could see him getting entrenched in a position that really threatens to take down this base.
That being said, I feel like Solar might be in pretty good shape to try to hold this.
He definitely has a good read on what's coming, but +1 Carapace and centrifugal hooks are very far from completion, only about a third done each.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be too confident with it either. Is he going to try to set up to enter into the main, which he could do?
He might be waiting for +1 and hoping that he has a window before these critical upgrades complete for Zerg. And if he's hoping for that, he would be right. There should be a 15-second window, maybe a little bit more, where ByuN actually has +1 infantry weapons and Solar does not have bailing speed, does not have Carapace, and some damage can be found. Still no third CC, so this is a very big commitment right now for ByuN.
Yeah, ByuN really not finding anything yet. The first engage is going to be the most important with this. Can you kill off enough to kind of leverage your position? All Zerg has to do is wipe the board of this push, and it's a pretty easy game from there on out.
Yeah. If Solar defends this in 1 fell swoop, I feel like it's pretty much just game.
But it's really going to come down to, the control and are you able... Okay,
oh,
big
wow.
counterattack.
That's a very big counterattack. ByuN is looking, so he's able to evacuate the Marines from this position, actually sniping down almost all of the Banelings. Only 1 remains, gets a nice connection with the SCVs, so many of those are going to fall. Before this, ByuN had actually cut SCV production at 49, so his economy going to be very sparse behind this, and now pushing into the 3rd base.
All right, he's coming forward. I mean, a lot of Marines here. Where are the medevacs with this?
I think they're hanging a little bit back. There isn't a lot of air support here. Only 3 medevacs on the field.
Yeah, not healing right now, kind of just sitting there. I mean, really, a lot of damage was dealt there to ByuN. What you see is what you get as far as what his army is at right now. I think Solar may have actually just outpaced him enough. Another scan reveals that there was a big counterattack, and still is, headed towards the south.
Yeah, Solar's doing so well with these counterattacks right now as he's just happily sitting at 60 workers, and the SCVs weren't able to build that depot in the meantime. So ByuN, although he has a nice focus fire on this Baneling, there are still a lot of Lings flooding this natural expansion. More SCVs are going to fall. ByuN's going to fall into the 20s of worker counts.
When you have these big 2-base pushes, the way to stop them is with the counterattack. The counterattack is just enough to really hinder the economy to the point where you can't quite recover. So again, the supplies army-wise are pretty close, but the worker count is the real problem for ByuN, because with Solar having 61 workers, he can just keep mining and keep producing and probably therefore keep hanging on. All he needs is an abundance of Banelings to overpower this push and the game is over.
Yeah, the siege tank count is very low. Marine count, excuse me. The medevac count also very low, and Solar's playing this smart. He knows how much economic damage that he did to ByuN, and he recognizes that he doesn't really need to defend this base right now. He's even content to move on to just 2 hatchery economy because he is still outscaling the Terran at least a little bit. And he's not going to take an engagement unless he feels confident because he knows that his win condition is just squashing this army. If this army for ByuN dies, it is game over. There's only 27 SCVs on the board.
Now, we've got a push that, I mean, he might get that hatchery that would put Zerg on 2 bases. I'm trying to watch this really carefully because, like, seems like Zerg should have enough to overpower this, but, you know, we got to see those banelings actually connect.
Yeah, Solar's just playing this very safe, very conservatively. Going to take the triangle expansion because it will take a long time for ByuN to actually pivot over and actually deal with that.
How long were those Marines or the drones not mining? Did you see that?
I have no idea.
That was kind of a scary thing to go by.
I think it might have been the Liberator sieging up there just a moment ago.
Okay.
But yeah, it's hard to say. We didn't get really a shot of it from the observer, but ByuN, up until this point, he hasn't reinforced this army on the map in what feels like maybe 3 minutes. And so the force that he has back at home, although it's very good at deflecting these counterattacks as Solar once again is going to come in, I would not be surprised to see Solar retreat, but instead actually finding a massive hit on those Marines and then just piecing out. Smart move there by Solar. ByuN, unless he's able to rendezvous this force back at home with his main force on the map, I don't see any way that he's actually able to take on the full army that Solar has assembled.
This is a pretty wild mid-game here. I mean, ByuN he certainly hasn't been remaking workers, right? He's kind of trying to work off what he's got. Solar, right now, I guess just now got a functional 3rd base, but hasn't had one for a while. Okay, a big attack coming in here. This should be, I think, the killing blow. I think this should be what allows Solar to just end this. ByuN did a pretty good job with the trade-outs, loses 1 medevac full of infantry.
Yeah, the economy for Solar is so good, and
yeah,
perhaps if he was able to reinforce that army over the past couple of minutes, that would be a different story. It would be harder to dislodge him from that force, but instead...
But here's the thing. It's the same army size again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to push out. And there were, you know, the Banes, they did their job, but they were not super efficient. I didn't think they needed to be. But let's see how this next fight goes.
Yeah, Solar might be overextending a little bit right here. We'll see what connections he's able to find, as actually the Lings get a very good surround here on these siege tanks, the Banelings. Will they be able to connect with the Marines?
Oh my god, an attack up here is going to take these Queens out, or none of them. Lots of transfuses, yeah.
A couple more in the bag. Solar is able to reinforce back at home now. That medevac barely escapes with its life, and ByuN still with an army supply lead, but 27 workers to 52.
It seems like ByuN is just gonna let this base run on exactly what it has. He's not gonna waste another second making an SCV and just keep trying to push these 2 hatcheries. Zerg has almost mined out the main and the natural. So remember, like, you know, Terran, they're gonna mine out eventually, but probably a little bit later. Okay. He thinks about going into the main. This is kind of wild.
Actually does find an angle to come in, skirting around that spore crawler, so drop does land. ByuN will have to evacuate though. Medevac very low on HP, and I gotta say, Solar, he hasn't really been able to scale that well over the past couple of minutes, and now with no threat of a counterattack and this Liberator on the left side.
Yeah, you know, it's a very specific way to play. He's got Liberators over multiple spots where drones are now not mining.
Yeah, the mining for Solar is basically non-existent right now. ByuN is basically on a 1-base economy, but it's still better than what Solar has. And this 3rd base is going to get taken out.
He's going to take this hatch out. Yeah, you're right. It's going to go down.
Crazy game.
Yeah, I kind of can't believe it. He's going to come in again.
Yeah, Solar once again going to try and engage on this position. Not all the tanks were sieged, as the one in the front just going to basically absorb the damage from the Banelings, and ByuN's going to evacuate this position once the tanks are gone, but Solar with a nice read. Had a good idea that move was going to come, had the Queens in position to actually deflect the drop from landing in the main base, and now ByuN, excuse me, has to retreat with these Marines and kind of regroup back at home, and I feel like...
Oh my god!
Wow.
Oh,
so close.
Oh my god. So he keeps the medevac alive, It's 27 SCVs to 45 drones. Now, the main, it literally is, I think the main literally last patch for ByuN just mined out. The natural doesn't have much left. Zerg is expanding again, has a very healthy base at 12 o'clock. Here we go, hold on.
Thought for a moment Solar might actually try and dive his position.
Yeah. I thought he was going to do just that. I think he does deny that. A counterattack comes here.
This counterattack hatching a siege tank is very fortuitous here for Solar as ByuN up against the ropes a little bit. He has to keep more forces back at home, but he also feels like he needs to get this pressure done. It's hard for him to be both impervious to attacks in his natural expansion and also have enough forces here in the front to deal with what Solar has mustered.
I mean, he's spreading pretty nicely. He's going to try to go in here for the full-on surround.
Yeah, Solar's definitely going to engage on this one, I think. And look at the army supplies. This might be Solar finally breaking out.
I mean, there's a lot here. The Banes may just be too high in number, but can the tanks target them down?
Only one siege tank remaining, and man, Solar.
That was a sick game.
That was a tightrope walk for the last couple of minutes there, but Solar able to emerge victorious over ByuN. 2-1 in a really fantastic series. That was up and down all the way throughout.
That was a real treat to cast. I gotta say, I'm very impressed. Never count Solar out. He is a survivor. And ByuN, I really respect the decision to just really lean in on 2-base. Be like, no, we're just gonna try to close this out. I am just gonna try to overpower you. In the end, it does not work out. It does not pay off. ByuN is now in the losers match in what is actually a very tough group.
Yeah, this is an absolutely stacked group. Can't wait to see it continue on. Guys, when we get back from this Maru versus GuMiho, Group A, Match 2. We'll see you in a minute.